All right, today's journal entry is going to break down all the various trade setups that I am interested in doing. The missed ones that I missed, the ones that I got right, all the mistakes that I made. And we're going to look at the trend techniques, the Fibonacci techniques, the wave patterns, the impulsive moves, and to put it all together and break it all up separately. All right, here we go. Okay, let's take a look at all my trades here without anything else in the way. After the first spike up here, I try to go long, and basically it looks like I just break even because it came right back down on a red candle. For some reason, and I wish I knew my thinking on this, I think what I got right back in it on the same candle. And, I was thinking, let it go up, I'll get some more on a 50% pullback. That was not clear thinking. Looks like I ended up adding to that, or accidentally added. Oh no, I know what happened. It went up and it came back down, and I accidentally added instead of taking my profit. I remember saying, if it breaks this candle, I'll take my profit. So that second trade would have been a winner, with the first one being break even, except I actually bought another one instead of selling, and then I had two, and it was a bummer, And when I realized it, it looks like I stopped out. And here on the trend line break, I added, but it was adding to a position that I was already in. And so, yeah, it didn't work out very good. Instead of selling for a profit up here, I sold down here thinking I was out of the trade, but I still had one. When I got the trend line break, which I should have never took because it didn't do a boom, boom to try to sell, I was adding to a position instead of adding for the first one. I realized it and I sold immediately, but still the trade itself bombed when I got out right at the tick, right at the bottom. And then when it got going in the right direction, I got in late and added. I thought it was just going to keep going. It didn't. And so I'm in a double-sized position right there all the way down here. I add at the 50% range. And then when it went down even further, what happened was I got out of the add only, and I added back here, and I started selling up here. And I think I finally just got out of everything over here. Because it was a good thing too, because it just kept going down. So Netflix was very challenging to trade today. I see the simplicity of the ignorance of the trades that I made. I see the accident. If I would have been profitable right here had this not been an accident, right? This would have been a loss nonetheless. This could have been a profitable here had I got in earlier and hit my 1-to-1 on it. I didn't have to add to this position, right? After losing, I added. That's the common mistake we make. When we're losing, we want to make it all back. Let's make a note on that as one of my weaknesses today, that I added too much to make up for the loss. And then I like the fact that if I had a strategy that started off in my mind, I changed my strategy, thinking that I'll add to the trade instead of getting out when it failed. I added back here, and I did get out here, like I said, but the idea that I changed my position and changed my strategy in the middle of the position, in the middle of the trade setup, was a weakness today. But overall, it was a small loss. I kept it way under my maximum stop loss for the day, and I was grateful for that. Okay, real quick on the perspective of trend line trading. With Netflix today, I really need to combine that with other techniques. Had I waited for the 23 or 38% pullback, I could have done a trend line and figured out that entering in right here was not a good idea. I could have waited, and I got in after this first trend line break right here, and it stopped me out. Plain and simple. There was no other reason to get in there other than a trend line break. The second time, there was at least some, double bottom ABC pattern, even though it was shallow. And I'd taken this trade, I took it late, but if I would have took it on time, I would have made a 1-to-1 on that easy. So bad execution, bad timing. This first trend line break on this kind of thing was not, you need at least an ABC pattern, I think, would be better. And ultimately, when it pulled back 50%, it was the best trade. It even gave us a 2 try-sell consolidation pattern right here. 1, 2, consolidate, push up. I got that trade. It was my best trade of the day. But those are the trend lines. We could take a look at these trend lines here, where it just basically grinds down. And then this trend line right here, if I would have bought right here on this, okay, let's just say this first trend line break here, it came down, it would have stopped me out on the pivot. But the next one here, right here on this one, after it does a boom, boom, a two try. Seems like the 2 try trend line breaks on the second trend line is much, much higher probability. Here again, breaking on the first trend line down, it obviously would have stopped me out. But on the second one here, that was much better. And I did take that trade, and that was a great trade. That was the best trade of the day right there. So taking the trend lines on that was great. All right, there we go for that trend line stuff. Alrighty, let's take a look at the Fibonacci stuff going on with Netflix today after the explosive move up. I do want to note, though, before the big 50% pullback, which worked perfectly, that the big impulse wave up right here, before it continued on these 2 pushes, when it was right here, if the fib was drawn right at this point, there's something to be said about the 23% bounce on that. Just taking the trade right there, and it would have really, having a reasonable stop loss, would have really paid. I'm going to keep an eye on that in the future. I just wanted to point that out. But the big Fibonacci pullback here, with that one out of the way, is that here's the 50 to 60% range right here in this box. And the other Fibonacci actually created a 50% range right here, the one that I just showed you. So sometimes it's good using multiple Fibonaccis on multiple pivots to create a combination area, and I like that. But using just this one Fibonacci, it came down right in the middle. So my first trade right here, I took it just because it came down. And I really didn't wait for anything. I wonder what would have happened if I combined other strategies like this. Well, if I used the trend line technique, I would have been stopped out. Unfortunately, it just came down a little lower right here and stopped me out. And even if I used the trend line technique with it, it would have stopped me out. Now, if I had combined it and waited for a 2 try sell pattern, which there's 2 tries to sell, and it breaks above, then it would have been successful. So sometimes the first trend line does not work. The second trend line is much, much better, and we had a better signal and a better pattern with a 2 try to sell pattern. And here's a consolidation and a continuation. So the Fibonacci worked very well today with Netflix had I executed that area a little bit better. All right, with NVIDIA, I just want to look at the ABC patterns and take a look at what my thinking was here on the 2-minute chart here with Netflix shot up. When I started thinking about the ABC pattern was right here on this engulfing candle. It's the first time the red has engulfed the green. None of these had that happen yet. And I was thinking here, let's wait for an ABC pattern. And it turns out that I didn't. As soon as it broke the trend line here, I got long and had to stop out when it came down here, right where it went back up. And unfortunately, if I let an ABC pattern take place, I might have noticed this, and maybe I would have thought differently about, when to buy. It's quite possible I could have bought after seeing that ABC that way. If that wasn't ABC, maybe I could have got long right here on this one after a 1-2 legged pullback, and then this may have made me money. I might have broke even on it. I didn't have to take a huge loss, a full risk unit of loss on that trade. And I even told myself right here, I want to wait for an ABC pattern, and I didn't. So I just wanted to make a note of that in the video. Yeah, today was pretty trippy. I, got stopped out right on the tick here, putting my stop right underneath this. I thought the ABC pattern was deep enough on this. This was the 23% move, but it had already hit the 23% pullback. If it's going to have an ABC deeper, it's going to go down to 38%, 50%, which is eventually what it did. But even down here, I got stopped out right on the tick. I entered in at the 50% level for no really good reason. It didn't really break a trend line or anything. And I should have waited for this 2-try-sell trend line consolidation pattern that I love. And I tell myself that I'm going to make this my special trade where I wait for 50% pullback and you get a W pattern with a consolidation on it. I should make a different video about this, but that's exactly what happened. Not that it really blew up or anything, but it certainly would have been a reliable trade, more reliable than just blindly buying on the 50% pullback here with no other reason, no trend line break, no special pattern, just buy it. So that's what happened with Netflix on the Fibonacci retracement deal. I missed a great pattern by going in early and getting stopped out. Actually, I did take that trade, looks like. I did take it. I did get, this is one of the one of the only wins I had on Netflix today. Had a lot of break evens and mostly losses. But I did take that pattern. And so after I got stopped out right here, I got back in when I noticed the W. I didn't even wait for the consolidation, though. It could have easily came back down and consolidated lower. So there you go. Well, I just had to trade NVIDIA. End of the day. Shouldn't have done it. Ended up losing a little more, but I did appreciate this trend line break at 50% Fibonacci. And I kept my stop loss real tight. It had stopped me out 2 times right here. I tried to play momentum to the downside. It was at 50% retracement. It wasn't going any lower. That was bad, so I reversed. And it just came down past that pivot. You know, I used that pivot as a stop loss for the reverse to go long, and it came right past it. So I used this pivot again as a trend line break, and it broke the trend line, and I got in right as soon as it went over the trend line. Actually, I think my stop loss was the candle that I entered in on. I said, you know what? I'm not going to lose a whole lot on pivots again. I'm going to use the candle itself. So I got in on this really narrow candle, and I put my stop right underneath it, and we got 3-to-1 on it, and I made myself wait. And that's the first time I've really gotten a 3-to-1, I think. So I definitely want to make a video about that. And unfortunately, I had these terrible trades over here. I still have a loss on it, but I certainly made back a lot when I held for this. The big thing on this video is that I held for 3-to-1. I want that to be something that I do more and more. Plus, there's times when I could take a 1-to-1 and I don't. And I got to get better at taking my profits when things spike in the direction that the stock is going, and learning how to move my stop better. I'm very grateful for this. NVIDIA, 3-to-1. Shall we say very, very grateful that I took the 3-to-1, because it came all the way down and would have stopped me out for a loss. All right, let's take a look at TXN real quick here. And it was a great gap and go situation. Here's the daily chart where it gapped down, and it was testing this resistance area right here, and it was breaking down below it, and I was happy about that. It was right here in this area. You can see in the hourly chart, this is the candle over here, and right here on the first hour, you know, it went up, but it came down, tested that area, and kept pushing down. It looked really good. Right over here's the 15-minute chart on that. First 15-minute candle, it actually bounced off of it as strength. Then it started rolling back down and around and came back down this way. And that's when I was short on it. Let's take a look at that on the 1-minute chart. Something I want to note here about the pre-market, post and pre-market is looking like it. Look at this. It's a strong move back up at the opening. The opening's over here. And it opens, a strong move up. And it was very interesting. All day today, it didn't really go back down to the overnight area. It stayed up in this area right here. This is the lowest that it went right here, as a matter of fact. If we draw the Fibonacci on that from the low of the pre and post market, it really is bouncing right there at 50%, right in this area right here, right on the 200 moving average. And one of my shorts, my last short on it was right here in that area. Now, it did go down, but didn't give me the return I was looking for on that particular trade. All right, so let's take a look at this real quick. It is kind of sloppy, so hold on one second. Okay, before all that to the right, the opening was right here. The first couple of candles went up, and as soon as it started to turn, show 3 candles of resistance, it started to turn red. I said it's going to go back down to the low. I entered short here to the low of the day. It came down. I stopped out. Great trade. I said I'm done for the day on this particular stock. But then it starts to put in this, comes back down to the low of the day and puts in this right here. Who wouldn't short that? I did. And it spiked down. My stop was pretty small, and I missed getting that profit right. It started coming back up in a strong green candle. And it would have went up a lot higher. And I stopped out for break even on that second trade. I mean, it really, if I didn't take my profit there when I was supposed to, I don't know if I would have waited for all this. I probably could have waited for all this down here, but the fact that it came all the way back up to my entry, I don't like that. When it spikes down in 1 minute, I'm supposed to take my profit on that. Come back up, short it again, great. What I did was I shorted down here where I should have took profits. And instead of taking profit here, my stop loss was pretty high. Because my stop loss was way up here, my profit target had to be way down here. So it didn't go all the way down, and I didn't think it was going to do this number here and come all the way up. And I did lower my stop loss when price got this far. At least I didn't keep it up here on the pivot right here. I actually took it from here and brought it down to this consolidation area, this right here in this area, and that's where it stopped me out. So that, ended up, instead of the first trade being a winner, being done with it for the day, I took 2 more trades. One was a break even and one was a loss. And I think the loss was bigger than the gain. So a little bit of a loss on this trade instead of having a winner on it. That's a bummer. Okay, finally, I want to go over the psychology of my thinking in these trades in case I missed anything whatsoever. What was I thinking right here when I did this? Let's go to trade 1 up here. Buy on breakout of narrow range bar, stop under the range, trying for a 1-to-1. That's what I did. I got out real fast on that. When it came back down, it went up, come back down, and then I got back in it though. Let's see, did I put any words? Going for a bigger pullback. That's what I did on trade 2. To add to trade, hope for 50%, and it did go down to 50%. And had I held this one trade right here, through all of this, let's see, I took a trade here, I took 2 trades here and added. Had I waited down here and added down here, I might have not been so antsy because I was in 3 at this point, antsy to hold through this little bounce. So the idea that I had on my second trade, I didn't even stick to it. Okay, so that was that's bad weakness right there. Very bad. The rest of it is kind of went over that already. We went over everything already, so I don't need to go back over that again, except for the late trading I did on NVIDIA today. We already talked about that. So I think we're done for the journaling on my video journaling today. We'll see you on the next video. Lord willing, peace.